Hey, welcome back to our Gracie Jiu-Jitsu self-defense course. And in this section, we're going to talk about what I call the 4 circles of Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, a lot of times people will talk about the 3 circles of Jiu-Jitsu and they view them as sort of separate circles. Okay, and those 3 are Jiu-Jitsu for MMA, Jiu-Jitsu for self-defense, and Jiu-Jitsu for sport competition. Okay, I add a 4th one just because of my background, which is Jiu-Jitsu for military or police training. Okay, so these 4, however, are not separate and equal circles, right? The biggest circle is the self-defense circle. Within that, the next biggest circle is Jiu-Jitsu for police or law enforcement. Within that, the next biggest circle is Jiu-Jitsu for mixed martial arts. And within that, the smallest circle is Jiu-Jitsu for sport. Okay, and why do I explain it that way? Because, as we've said before, what are the restrictions if you get attacked in the parking lot?
There are no restrictions.
Okay, well, what about the surroundings? What can you be sure of?
You can be nothing
Okay,
sure.
what attacks is he not allowed to do? He's allowed to do everything, right?
Yeah.
How many guys will there be?
You don't know.
You don't know. There are absolutely no restrictions on what the other person can do and what you can do. There's no time limits. There's no weight classes. None of that. So that's why it's the biggest one, right? Because it encompasses the most possibilities and the least restrictions. Okay. Within that is the military and police, because they have restrictions, but again, their realities could be very, so they don't know how many people they're going to fight. They don't know what the person has as far as weapons. There's certainly nothing that's allowed or disallowed often. For them, there may be. For police or military, there may be, but certainly for the opponent, there's no restrictions. And so that's the next biggest circle. By the way, I want to point out that the largest circle, the self-defense circle, the primary goal in self-defense is what?
To survive. To
survive, right? It's not necessarily to win, it's to survive. As we get further in, the focus becomes more on winning,
yep.
Right? So with a military situation, there's survival certainly, but often the goal overall is to win. Same with a police officer, right? If he wants to arrest you, running away is not going to help him, right? He needs to go hands-on, he needs to control you, all of that. Within the next one is mixed martial arts, Jiu-Jitsu, right? Because you have striking, you have cage work, all of these things that you don't have in sport Jiu-Jitsu. But you do have weight classes, you do have time limits, you do have relative age, and certainly gender were the same. So there are a lot more restrictions, but again, not as few as the next situation, which is the sport Jiu-Jitsu. Sport Jiu-Jitsu, a lot of restrictions about what you're allowed to and not allowed to do. Again, for safety's sake, I'm not criticizing it, but it is what it is. You know, if you go to compete, there's a very set time limit. There's not even rounds, right? You only have one time limit, except for rare tournaments, okay? A lot of things you're not allowed to do, even to, you know, I'm not allowed to put my fingers inside your pant leg. I mean, all kinds of rules, okay? So here's a problem, right? If you train with the smallest circle, it means that everything outside of that small circle, you're not trained in, right? For me, I'm a big believer in train the biggest circle because it's always easier to go from the biggest circle and refine than it is to go from refinement and try to expand, okay? It's much easier for me to take away stuff than it is for me to add, okay? So this is one reason that we're really focused on teaching the self-defense style, because it's much easier to adjust that. Hey, I want to go into MMA, I want to go into this, I want to go into that, than it is to try to, again, expand outwards. And so when you train and you learn a technique, this is why I get so annoyed when I hear this is the best technique for best version of X or Y, right? In which of those 4 circles is the best? Because once you change the circle, it certainly becomes a lot different. You know, maybe in no-gi grappling, a sweep single might be a great takedown, right? For a military guy who's got, 80, 100 pounds of kit and he's on, gravel and maybe there's glass on the ground trying to hit a sweep single on somebody, he's going to destroy his knees. So it is not the best. So the reason I keep bringing this up is I want people to get out of that habit of this is the best, worst, etc., and say maybe in this situation it's very effective, but if I was in this other situation, how would I adjust it? And that is our 4 circles of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.